Hello and welcome. In this series of What Most JWs Wouldn't Know About the Bible, we'll be looking into the origin of the name Jehovah. But before we dig into the nitty-gritty details of the matter, let's first take a look at how Hebrew works as a written language in order to get a better understanding. Hebrew, along with many other Semitic languages, use abjad writing systems, meaning that the letters represent consonantal sounds while lacking vowel sounds. Hebrew is also written and read from right to left, as opposed to the familiar left to right. Vowels were added much later by medieval Jewish scribes called the Masoretes, who had developed a scribal tradition shown in some notable manuscripts that form the basis for our modern translations of the Old Testament or Tanakh. Take this word for example. From right to left, we can make out a d, a w, and another d sound. Adding in the vowels, we get an a and an e between the consonants. If we Latinize the w as a v, we begin to recognize a familiar biblical name, David. Understanding this, we can start to look at the divine name of the God of the Bible. The divine name, also known as the Tetragrammaton, is made up of four consonants, YHWH, or Yod-He-Vav-He. When the Masoretes introduced vowels in the biblical text, they would often give the divine name the vowels E, O, and A. When Christian translators in Europe began working with the Hebrew text, they would naturally transliterate the consonants and vowels as they saw them. After Latinizing the Y as a J and the W as a V, we see the first appearance of the name Jehovah. Simple, right? Well, not really. Here's where it gets a little complicated. You see, there was a long-standing tradition in Judaism that the name of God was considered so holy that it could not be vocalized. So when ancient Jews were reading the Torah and came across the divine name, they were instead to say the words Adonai for Lord, Elohim for God, and Hashem for the name, when referring to the divine name itself. The Masoretes, however, came up with their own way of signaling the reader how the divine name was to be pronounced in specific situations. Instead of replacing the four-letter name with Adonai and Elohim, they inserted into the name the vowels from these two titles, informing the reader how to read the name properly within the text. Sometimes, instead of the E, O, and A vowels commonly seen in the divine name representing the title Adonai, the name would instead be given the E, O, and E vowels representing the title Elohim. An example of this can be seen in Ezekiel chapter 2 verse 4 in the Masoretic text, where the Tetragrammaton is already coupled with the title Adonai. So instead of reading Adonai twice, it was read Elohim Adonai, or God the Lord. What's also interesting are cases where the divine name is given a prepositional prefix. You see, in Hebrew, nouns are given prefixes represented by a single letter, which expresses a preposition, such as to, for, with, by, in, like, or as. Typically, when coupled with an indefinite noun or with a proper name, these prefix letters are given extremely short vowel points known as simple schwa, represented by two vertically aligned dots. What we observe, however, in every case where the divine name is given a prefix, the vowels are longer than they should be, and these vowels are sometimes different. This only makes sense if you understand that these are merely ideograms for words which start with silent consonants and therefore are natural exceptions to this rule. Examples of these can be found in 1 Samuel chapter 14 verse 33 and Psalm 68 verse 20 in the Masoretic text. While we can't know for sure how exactly the divine name was pronounced, we can infer based on the best available evidence that it is probably something like Yahweh.